Outlines of history. In order to understand the substance of the idea of esotericism, it must first be understood that the history of humanity is much longer than is usually supposed. It should be observed that the accepted view of textbooks and popular outlines of history which contain a very short historical period, and a more or less dark age before that, is in reality very far from most recent scientific views. Present-day historical science is beginning to regard the prehistoric period and the Stone Age quite differently from the way in which they were regarded 60 or 70 years ago. It cannot regard the prehistoric period as a period of barbarism, because against this view there speaks the study of the remains of prehistoric structures and extant memorials of prehistoric art, science, or literature, the study of religious customs and rites of different peoples. The comparative study of religions, and in particular the study of language, that is, the data of comparative philology. On the contrary, in opposition to the old view, there already exist many theories and there appear many new ideas on the possibility of ancient prehistoric civilizations. Thus the Stone Age is regarded with more probability as a period not of beginning, but the fall and degeneration of previously existing civilizations. In this regard it is characteristic that all present-day indigenous tribes without exception, all cultures who our society have declared third world or undeveloped, are degenerate descendants of more cultured peoples. This most interesting fact is usually passed over in silence. But not a single indigenous race that we know of, i.e. no isolated or semi-isolated peoples met with so far by our culture, have shown any sign of evolution in process in any regard whatsoever. On the contrary, in view of every case without exception, signs of degeneration have been observed. In this we do not speak of degeneration consequent upon contact with our culture, but of degeneration which has been in process for centuries before contact with Western or First World ideas, and is in many cases perfectly clear and evident. All indigenous or Third World nations have tales and traditions of a golden age, or of a heroic period. In reality these tales and traditions speak of their own past, or of their own ancient civilization. The language of all peoples contains words and ideas for which there is no longer any room in their actual life. All peoples had before better weapons, better boats, better towns, efficient agriculture and higher forms of religion. The same fact explains the superiority of Paleolithic, more ancient drawings found in caves, to Neolithic, more recent drawings. This also is a fact that is usually passed over altogether or omitted without explanation. According to esoteric ideas, many civilizations unknown to our historical science have succeeded one another on the earth, and some of these civilizations reached a far higher point than our own civilization, which we regard as the highest ever reached by humankind. Of many of these ancient civilizations no visible traces remain, but the attainment of the science of these remote periods have never been utterly lost. Their knowledge has been preserved from century to century, from age to age, and handed on from one civilization to another. Schools of a different kind were guardians of that knowledge, and it was protected there against non-initiated persons who might mutilate or distort it, then was handed on only from teacher to pupil, who had undergone prolonged and a difficult preparation. The term occultism, which is often used in relation to the content of esoteric teachings, has a twofold meaning. It is either a secret knowledge in the sense of knowledge held in secret, or knowledge of the secret, i.e. of secrets concealed from mankind by nature. This definition is the definition of divine wisdom, or if we take the words of the Alexandrine philosophers of the 3rd century, it is the definition of the wisdom of the gods, or theosophy in the widest sense of the word, the Brahma Vidya of Indian philosophy. The idea of the inner circle of humanity, or the idea of esotericism, has many different sides. The historical experience of esotericism, i.e. of the inner circle of humanity itself, and the history and origin of the knowledge it possesses. The idea of the acquisition of this knowledge by men, that is through initiation and schools. The psychological possibility connected with this idea, that is, the possibility of changing forms of perception, or broadening the capacity for knowledge and understanding. Ordinary intellectual means are considered inadequate for the acquisition of esoteric knowledge. First of all, the idea of esotericism tells us of knowledge which has been accumulated over tens of thousands of years, and has been handed down from generation to generation within small circles of initiates. This knowledge often relates to spheres which have not been touched upon by modern science. In order to acquire this knowledge and the power that it gives, an individual must go through difficult preliminary preparations and tests, then prolonged work, without which it is impossible to assimilate the knowledge, then to learn how to use it. This work for the mastery of esoteric knowledge, and the methods belonging to it, constitute by themselves a separate cycle of knowledge unknown to us. It is necessary further to understand that according to the idea of esotericism, people are not born in the esoteric circle. One of the tasks of members of the esoteric circle is the preparation of their successors, to whom they may hand on their knowledge and all that is connected with it. For this purpose, people belonging to esoteric schools appear at indefinite intervals in our history as leaders and teachers of peoples. They create and leave behind them either a new religion or a new type of philosophical school, a new system of thought, which indicates to people of the given period and country, in a form intelligible to them, the way they must follow in order to approach the inner circle. One and the same idea invariably runs through the teachings originated by these people, namely the idea that only very few can enter the esoteric circle, though many may aspire to do so and even make the attempt. The esoteric schools which preserve ancient knowledge, handing it over from one to another in succession, and the people who belong to these schools stand apart as it were from ordinary mankind. At the same time, these schools play a very important part in the life of humanity. But we know nothing of this part, and if we hear about it we understand imperfectly of what it consists. We are reluctant to believe in the possibility of anything of the kind. This is due to the fact that in order to understand the possibility of the existence of an inner circle, the part played by esoteric schools in the life of humanity, it is necessary to be in possession of such knowledge concerning the essential nature of man and his destiny in the world, as is not possessed by modern science, nor consequently by ordinary man. Certain races have very significant traditions and legends built upon the idea of an inner circle. Such, for instance, are the Tibeto-Mongolian legends of the subterranean kingdom, of the king of the world, the mystery city of Agartha and so on, provided that these ideas actually exist in Mongolia and Tibet, and are not the invention of European travelers or occultists. According to the idea of esotericism as applied to the history of mankind, no civilization ever begins of itself. There exists no evolution which commences accidentally and proceeds mechanically. Only degeneration and decay can proceed mechanically. Civilization never starts through natural growth, but only by artificial cultivation. Esoteric schools are hidden from the eyes of ordinary humanity. But the influence of schools persists uninterrupted in history and have the aim, so far as we can understand this aim, of helping, when that appears possible, races which have lapsed into a barbarous state of one kind or another, to emerge from that state and then to enter upon a new civilization, or a new life. An indigenous or third world tribe, even an entire country, is taken in hand by a man or woman possessing power and knowledge. They begin to educate and instruct the people. Give them a new religion, make laws, build temples, introduce writing, create the beginnings of art and sciences, make the people migrate to another region if necessary, and so on. Theocratic government is a form of such artificial cultivation. Bible history from Abraham and possibly even earlier to Solomon is an example of the civilizing of primitive people by members of the inner circle. According to tradition, the following historical personages belong to esoteric schools: Moses, Gautama the Buddha, John the Baptist, Jesus Christ, Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, and also the more mythical Orpheus, Hermes Trismegistus, Krishna, Rama, and certain other prophets or teachers of mankind such as Muhammad. To esoteric schools also belong builders of the pyramids and the Sphinx, priests of the mysteries in Egypt and Greece, many artists in Egypt and other ancient countries, alchemists, the architects who built Hagia Sophia, the Gothic cathedrals, the founders of certain schools, the orders of Sufis and dervishes, and others who appeared in history for brief moments and then remain historical enigmas. It is said that at the present time some members of esoteric schools live in remote and inaccessible parts of the globe, such as the Himalayas, in Tibet, or some mountainous regions of Africa. while others, according to similar stories, live amongst ordinary people without differing from them at all externally. Often belonging to the uncultured classes and engaged in insignificant and perhaps, from the ordinary point of view, even vulgar professions. Hence a French occultist author stated that he had learnt much from an Oriental gentleman who sold parrots at Bordeaux. It has always been so from the earliest times. Men and women belonging to the esoteric circle, when they appear among ordinary humanity, always wear a mask through which few succeed in penetrating. Esotericism is remote and inaccessible, but every person who learns of or guesses at the existence of esotericism has the chance of approaching a school, then hope of meeting people who will help and show the way. Esoteric knowledge is based upon direct oral tuition. However, before an individual can attain the possibility of direct study of the ideas of esotericism, they must first learn all that is possible about esotericism in the ordinary way. That is the study of history, philosophy, and religion, and they must seek. For the gates of the world of the miraculous may be opened only to one who seeks. Knock and it will be opened unto you, ask and it will be given unto you. The question often arises, why, if the esoteric circle really exists, does it do nothing to help ordinary man to emerge from the chaos of contradictions in which he lives, then come to true knowledge and understanding? Why does the esoteric circle not help men to regulate their life on earth, and why does it allow violence, injustice, cruelty, war, and so on? The answer to all these questions lies in what has just been said. Esoteric knowledge can only be given to those who seek, only to those who have been seeking it with a certain amount of consciousness, that is, with an understanding of how it differs from ordinary knowledge and how it can be found. This preliminary knowledge can be gained by ordinary means, from existing and known literature easily accessible to all. The acquisition of this preliminary knowledge may be regarded as the first test. Only those who pass the first test, those that is who acquire the necessary knowledge from material accessible to all, may hope to take the next step. At which point direct individual help will be accorded them. An individual may hope to approach esotericism if they have acquired a right understanding from ordinary knowledge, that is, if they can find their way through the labyrinth of contradictory systems, theories, and hypotheses surrounding them, then understand their general meaning and significance. This test is something like a competitive examination open to the whole human race, and the idea of a competitive examination alone explains why the esoteric circle appears reluctant to help humanity. It is not reluctant. All that is possible is done to help humankind, but they will not or cannot make the necessary effort themselves. They cannot be helped by force. The biblical story of the golden calf is an illustration of the attitude of people of the outer circle to the endeavors of the inner circle. It serves as an illustration of how the people of the outer circle behave at a time when beings of the inner circle are striving to help them. Thus, from the standpoint of the idea of esotericism, the first step towards hidden knowledge has to be made in a province open to everybody. In other words, the first indication of the way to true knowledge can be found by everybody, in the ordinary knowledge accessible to all. Religion, philosophy, legends, fairy tales, and stories abound with information about esotericism. But one must have eyes to see and ears to hear.